afternoon and welcome to this august institution. In 2016, the topic for this year level was that the Brexit vote was the right vote. Last year, the topic was that hard Brexit is preferable to soft Brexit. And this year we have that Boris is best for Brexit. And the rate that England's going, I think we'll be able to have a variation of this topic for quite some time to come. Anyway, welcome to today. I'd like to introduce you to our chairman, Dr. Paul Hoadley, who will say a few words.
Thank you, Sonia. My name is Paul Hoadley. I'm the chairman of the Board of Debating SA, and welcome, as Sonia said, to Parliament House for this afternoon's debate. 2019 was another bumper season for the organisation, with 278 teams from 62 schools debating throughout the year. And without wanting to put too much pressure on the teams beside me now, it really does all culminate in this afternoon's debate, where we're about to watch Rostrevor College versus St Peter's Girls School debate for the Senior Division Championship Shield. Best of luck to both teams, and at this point I'll hand over to the chairperson.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 2019 Senior Division Debating SA Grand Final Debate. My name is Kerry Hodkinson, and I'm the chairman of this debate. The timekeeper is Stella Clark. The topic of this debate is that Boris is best for Brexit. The affirmative team seated to my right is from Rostrevor College, consisting of first speaker Graham Quach, second speaker Lena Silva, and third speaker Christy Sargi. The negative team seated to my left is from St Peter's Girls School, consisting of first speaker Attila Braithwaite, second speaker Aditi Tamanaka, and third speaker Emily Downing. This grand final debate will be judged by a panel of 5 adjudicators, who are Ms Gabriella Coote, Mr James Baker, Ms Jenny Burrows, Mr Lucas Hazel, and Ms Malwinga Waira. The speaking time of this debate is 8 minutes. A single warning bell will sound at 7 minutes, and a double bell will sound at 8 minutes. If required, a continuous bell will sound 30 seconds after the second bell, indicating that the speaker must conclude their speech. I ask that all mobile phones and other electronic devices be switched off for the duration of the debate. I declare this debate open and call upon Graham Quach to open the affirmative case.
Good afternoon, ladies, gentlemen, and chairman. The topic of our debate today is that Boris is best for Brexit, which is the notion that we, the affirmative team, strongly support. In order to create a transparent and reasonable understanding between us and our opposition, I'd first like to define the subject matter. We define the topic quite simply as Boris, meaning Boris Johnson, the man who served Britain as the Mayor of London between 2008 to 2016, and then as Foreign Secretary from 2016 to 2018, before most recently undertaking the role of Prime Minister of the United Kingdom as of July this year, being the best or finest person responsible for driving the motion or bill of Brexit. We define Brexit as a scheduled withdrawal of the United Kingdom from the European Union since June of 2016, when a majority vote determined this desire. The topic of Brexit and the desire to leave has not changed, as reported by Professor of Politics John Henry. And in fact, regardless of the details related to any, the UK under Johnson are still in favour of leaving the EU. Today, I will be contextualising the topic by considering the turbulent and unsettling state that Parliament in the United Kingdom has been immersed in for many years now. I will also discuss the welcome transparency, commitment and insight that the Prime Minister Johnson brings to Brexit, and I will also provide you with an insight into the other leaders who have not even been able to pass Brexit or even spur the same amount of motivation to see the deal actually get done. Our second speaker, Liam, will explain the political matters that should reflect the voices of the people who are becoming lost in political correctness and socialist agendas, to which Boris Johnson is uniquely trying to put an end to. He will also explore the charismatic and popular Prime Minister's ability to connect with the citizens of the United Kingdom through the technology as he attempts to unite the divided states. Then finally, our third speaker, Christy, will rebut and summarise our points. Now, onto my points. Contextually, ladies and gentlemen, and my first point is that the political landscape of the UK has changed dramatically in the wake of the Brexit referendum and has since remained leaderless following David Cameron's resignation and Theresa May's uneventful term. 3 years on, Britain continues to find itself in a volatile and unpredictable environment inside Parliament and outside, with daily protests occurring in the streets. As political reporter Lisa Nandy stated on September 8th, for 3 years, Parliament has been in the grip of a fight between two extremes, and it is driving citizens and the country to breaking point. She explains that what festers is a battle that has raged between those MPs who want to leave without the deal and those who want a second referendum, resulting in further hostility within the governing bodies of the UK, and this permeates to the masses who remain divided and directionless. Recently, the reality remains, ladies and gentlemen, that Brexit, regardless of the side individuals stand on or which deal they see most useful, is being drowned out by what the BBC reporter Jack Watson refers to as noise and abuse from the Leave and Remain supporters alike. So, with this desperate situation in mind and the squabbling continuing no doubt as we speak right now, the Prime Minister of just the past 3 months, Boris Johnson, presents a solution, presents an answer, and most importantly, presents leadership. Therefore, my second point this afternoon, friends, is that Boris is best for Brexit, due to his ability to lead per the demand of the majority of Britain, as well as his incredible commitment to getting Britain out of the EU by October 31st. It has been all over headlines and reported upon by various sources, including the BBC, that on September 5th, Boris Johnson expelled 21 MPs from the Parliamentary Conservative Party, removing the whips after they rebelled against it in a bid to prevent a non-deal Brexit. This act raised eyebrows about the Prime Minister's ability to maintain the Conservative Tories, and left-wing leaders and affiliates naturally condemned Boris for this. However, looking past the superficial headlines, it has been stated by Professor of Politics John Henry that this Parliament tactic is proving to be exceptional. He has gone on to say there is now even a chance of the deal on October 17th, because Brussels realised that the Prime Minister is totally committed to leaving on October 31st. Ladies and gentlemen, I challenge the Negative team to provide a better advocate for Brexit than Mr. Johnson, who is prepared to blow up his entire parliamentary majority to make this withdrawal happen. My final point this afternoon is that Boris is best for Brexit, as he's proven to be a leader who the British people can place their faith in. It is explained by John Curtis of the Journal of Common Market Studies that Boris Johnson and Cabinet Minister Michael Gove have become leading figures in the Leave campaign is a factor considered to have given the pro-Brexit side a wider appeal and greater credibility. Johnson is believed to have been heavily influential during the campaign, with polling results revealing that the public trusted the words of Boris Johnson on Brexit more than any other politician. That's including David Cameron. Now seems an appropriate time, ladies and gentlemen, to address the issue of Boris Johnson's brother, announcing 2 Thursdays ago that he was resigning as member of the Parliament and Government Minister, saying he was torn between family loyalty and the national interest, as reported by the ABC. Boris's former politician's father has also expressed his feelings about Boris's goals. Yet, despite all of Boris's remaining committed to Brexit, and the UK voters saying that if needed, he will break the chains like the superhero Hulk if anyone tries to stop him. To conclude, ladies and gentlemen, the matter of whether you support Boris Brexit or not is not the issue of hand this afternoon. Rather, the question of whether Boris Johnson is the best man to make this happen, for better or worse, is where the focus remains, and we challenge the negative to provide us with a more committed and well-driven leader to put an end to the issue that has divided the UK. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Matilda and the first negative speaker in this afternoon's debate. The topic for our debate is that Boris is best for Brexit. We agree with the definition given by the affirmative team. However, we, the negative team, strongly believe that this statement is completely false. Today, I will be talking to you about Johnson's career background and his therefore clear lack of understanding in the economical development of the United Kingdom. I will also explain that Johnson's motives are not for that of the greater good. Our second speaker, Aditi, will be talking about Johnson's methods for Brexit, many of which go against the Constitution and/or manipulate the law. She will then discuss his absence of support from fellow politicians. Our third speaker, Emily, will rebut and sum up our team's compelling case. Before I begin my speech, I'd like to point out some flaws in the opposition's argument. The first negative speaker has tried to tell you that Boris is best for Brexit because he has public support and backing. Boris does not have public support or backing, and has even caused fellow members of Parliament to step down, such as Dame Caroline Spelman and Jo Johnson. The public are not in favour of Johnson. Check the YouGov statistics and find he only has a 33% positive public opinion. These statistics are a small insight into the lacking public and political backing Boris has, making it hard for him to make decisions and pass bills as only a minority support his actions. Furthermore, the first speaker has tried to tell you that Boris is best for Brexit because he is dedicated to achieving a result, even putting it as a higher priority than his own family. While yes, Mr Johnson is dedicated to achieving a result, he has clearly stated that the result itself does not matter as long as there is one. He even said in an article in the New Yorker that he would rather be dead in a ditch than delay Brexit again as he is sick of the process. So even if Boris has declared he will put Brexit as a higher priority than his own family, this does not make him the best leader. Boris's approach and reasoning is selfish and not for the good of the country, clearly contradicting the point made by the negative team. Moving on to my first point, that Boris is not the best for Brexit because he does not have any real experience in economics and clearly lacks understanding in regard to the economical aspect of Brexit. In fact, Mr Johnson's qualifications are entirely in the areas of journalism and publishing. He studied classics at university and worked for various newspapers from 1989. Johnson's untraditional and underqualified background in politics led to his position being threatened on a number of occasions due to his dismissive and amateur behaviour in the media, causing him to be sacked in 2004. He returned in 2015, becoming the Mayor of London, despite perceptions that he is a gaffer-prone and insubstantial politician. It is clearly evident that in Mr Johnson's political journey, there has been very little experience in regard to the UK economy and its function. There is an extreme difference between being the Mayor of London and handling issues such as putting more transportation in place, and being the Prime Minister of the entirety of Britain, potentially facing a huge long-term impact on the economy. His little understanding of the economy has been revealed through his blatant disregard and ignorance that a no-deal Brexit would have. BBC released a report in July this year stating that a £30 billion hit could be caused, and the Office of Budget Responsibilities said the UK economy would be pushed into recession. Most economists and business groups believe no deal will certainly lead to economic harm. Currently, Johnson is disregarding the fact that such a drastic move will sever any ties between the UK and the EU, leaving no transition period, no free trade, no open channels of renegotiation, and no free movement of people, goods, or money. An article in The Guardian by Larry Elliott revealed that politicians, economists, and business leaders have all warned Johnson of the long-term impact on the British economy. And how has he responded, you ask? Well, by ignoring these facts, and then following with empty promises to spend more on schools, the police, and better transport in the north, all with a rapidly declining budget. Breezy self-confidence and budget giveaways can only get him so far in hiding a dysfunctional economy, stated Elliott. He went on saying, to sum up, Britain has a trade deficit problem, a London versus the rest problem, a debt problem, a housing problem, and a care problem. The fact that Johnson has referenced some of them already indicates that he knows what they are, yet either doesn't understand their effect or simply doesn't care. Boris is evidently not the best for Brexit because he has not undertaken measures to reduce the intense economic issues that will arise due to his limited experience in handling the economy. Rather, his knowledge lies in the social and community-based areas which are obviously not going to assist him in handling this challenging case. This leads me to my second point, that Boris is not the best for Brexit because his motives are not for the greater good, as he just wants the ordeal over and done with, deal or no deal. The New Yorker describes the situation as a Boris Brexit carnage, not dissimilar to the scene of a disaster. The article went into depth as to Johnson's true motives and intentions in regard to Brexit, and found that since becoming Prime Minister, he has replaced the grinding Brexit strategy with something that is kinetic and reckless. A direct quote from Johnson supports this. He says, "We are sick of the country's agonising departure from the European Union. I want it over with, deal or no deal." Here it is obvious that Boris's intentions are not those that will benefit everyone. A 2017 report for Chrysalis and Homeless League sets out the serious risk that homeless EU citizens will face if Brexit goes ahead, as it currently is, with no attempt to reduce these impacts. It states that a hostile environment will become present and rough sleepers will be deterred from seeking help for fear of deportation, adding to the many existing barriers when it comes to healthcare, benefits and support. There are also concerns over potential shortages of medicine and fresh produce, with organisations such as the National Health Service of the National Health Service beginning to stockpile medicines. Boris is ignoring the needs of the British population and clear warning signs that more care is needed, for his own personal reason that Brexit is tiring and he wants it over with. If Mr Johnson is getting fatigued and is becoming sick of the process, making him want to end it no matter the outcome, he is undoubtedly not the best Brexit. A better Prime Minister would take into consideration all the effects, social, political and economical, and do their best to reduce the negative effects rather than avoid them. So, Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, Boris is unquestionably not the best person to carry out the Brexit plan. He has no grasp of the economy and how it will be affected, deal or no deal, ignoring the warnings from professional economists and business people. His motives and intentions are not beneficial to the greater community of Britain and cause more problems than solutions. His do or die, deal or no deal approach follows a reckless path, dangerously testing the limits of the British economy. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and chairman. The topic of debate this afternoon is that Boris is best for Brexit, and this is a notion that we as the Affirmative team support. Following up from the shaping of today's debate through a socio-political yet pragmatic lens by Graham, I'll be attributing to our team's arguments by sharing that socio-political matters should reflect the voices of the people, and that the Prime Minister's ability to connect with the citizens of the United Kingdom through technology is one that has placed him in a popular position amongst the voters. However, prior to raising my own ideas tonight, I'd first like to rebut the ideas raised by the first negative speaker. The first negative speaker stated that Boris Johnson doesn't have a good economic knowledge, thus he's not the best for Brexit. However, Theresa May, the previous PM, had a brilliant economic knowledge, releasing many economic reports in her time as PM. However, in the 3 years that she served as the Prime Minister of the UK, she could not get a deal on Brexit done. Contrarily, yesterday, the EU Commission's President, Mr. Jean-Claude Juncker, stated that we can have a deal and that Brexit will happen. He stated this after he had meetings with Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson also sent planning documents outlining a potential deal. Mr. Juncker also stated that the backstop can be removed if other objectives are met, and that he's aware that the UK will leave by the 31st of October if they can't ratify a deal. This is the closest any leader has come to achieving a Brexit result, and Boris Johnson has done it in a space of 3 months, compared to Theresa May, who was more economically inclined, and she couldn't do it in 3 years. As well as that, the opposition speaker stated that under Boris Johnson, any deal or no deal that is made prior to Brexit will be a disadvantage to the UK. However, this point is actually not applicable to the debate, ladies and gentlemen, as Brexit, as defined by my first speaker, Graham, is simply the withdrawal of Britain from the EU, which has been widely documented by various journalists as with or without a deal. The topic is not what is best for Britain or Ireland. Our debate is that Boris is best for Brexit. Thus, we decline the insights of the first speaker, who is attempting to construct a narrative that has no place today in this debate. As well as that, the first speaker stated that Boris wants the Brexit over and done with, and that's why it doesn't make him best for Brexit. However, doesn't this make him best for Brexit? Because he does want it over and done with or without a deal, something that no other PM or leader in Britain has achieved. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I will segue onto my points. My first point this afternoon begins with citing the very purpose of Parliament, which, per insight from the Parliament UK, is that Parliament must make laws and act on behalf of the voters and the interests of the people. In the instance of Brexit, this functioning of Parliament would be little better than a failure, per articles by The Guardian and the ABC, stating that MPs had 3 years to come up with an alternative to no deal, and they failed. The best anecdote out of various examples pertains to the matters stated in 2017 under the May governance, when the Prime Minister was empowered to invoke Article 50 by the massive majority of 384 votes, when MPs passed the EU Notification of Withdrawal Act, and everything over here seemed on track. However, earlier this year, the Commons rejected the withdrawal agreement 3 times, and justifiably, the EU has responded that the agreement cannot be renegotiated, and therefore the only way to implement Brexit now is without a deal. Journalists at the ABC, James Longman, stated that the country is simmering, and the only positive policy MPs have supported is that embodied in the Brady Amendment, calling for the Irish backstop to be replaced with alternative arrangements, something that the EU declares that it may not tolerate. However, from the news updates that we got yesterday, Jean-Claude Juncker stated that with the constructive and progressive meetings he had with Johnson, he might now take the backstop out. Now, MPs may claim that they are losing vital sitting days in September and October, but they've had 3 years to come up with an alternative policy, and they have failed to do so. Friends, this is like asking for an extension on an assignment the night before it's due because you've had soccer practice, but you've had a whole term to work on it. Is this what is best for Brexit? Not at all. My second point this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, is that Boris Johnson is obviously the best for Brexit because of his ability to connect with citizens of the United Kingdom through his engaging addresses and use of technology, which has placed him in a popular and powerful position amongst voters. Now, a survey which was referred to by the opposition team by YouGov found that 38% of Brits say they have a favourable view of the Prime Minister, compared to just 54 who say they have an unfavourable opinion of him. And this gives them a net score of negative 16. Now, this is compared to the negative 21 he originally had when he first took over from Theresa May in July. And journalists from various sources praised this open dialogue and insight provided by contemporary modes of communication through Twitter and YouTube, and his most recently he desired to attend the Brussels summit to address the matter of the Irish backstop, something he acknowledged on Twitter. Psychologically, his effectiveness and popularity is bolstered by his candor and inclusivity, often using meta-language such as "let us see" and "our vision," which provides agencies of the populace and eliminates bias presented by the media and, of course, other politicians. Additionally, his boost in approval ratings followed his controversial decision to suspend Parliament, which triggered nationwide protests and a huge political fallout. The PM said he wanted to put forward a new government agenda following the Queen's speech. Regardless of his stance on Brexit, there's no denying that this man will stop at nothing to move his bill. So what possibly could be better? In fact, according to the Financial Times and Dr. Georgina Whalen, a political professor at Oxford, and Dr. Joseph Hinterberger, a sociologist from New York, they state that voters do not care about the political process and concur that Parliament is unpopular. What is deemed to be far more valuable, for better or worse, are the facts, states Dr. Whalen, is the ability of an individual to exhibit leadership and who possesses a genuine desire to support the progression of a state. Since his arrival 3 months ago, it's been documented by BBC that Mr. Johnson is an optimistic and effervescent man who will respect the will of the people by getting Brexit done, do or die. Is Brexit best for Britain? We will see. However, there is no denying that Boris is best for Brexit. Per his words on Twitter as he recorded himself on an airplane, Britain is about to take off. Thank you.
To continue the negative case, please welcome a DT to
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Aditi Tamhanka and I am the second speaker for the negative team. The topic for today's debate is that Boris is best for Brexit. As the second speaker tonight, I will be speaking on how Johnson is not backed politically by members of Parliament, including those in his own party. I will then explore how Johnson has recklessly subverted the fundamental principles of law and engaged in unconstitutional practices. Before I begin with my argument, I would like to point out some flaws in the opposition's argument. The first speaker has tried to tell you that the way in which Boris Johnson ejected on which British Parliament is based. It is deeply concerning that he should feel the need to go against what all members of his party are saying and believe is best. Zanny Minton-Beddoes, a constitutional analyst from the Washington Post, even refers to this move as stretching the Constitution to the limits for his own selfish gain. The first speaker himself admitted that all this is for the satisfaction of hitting an arbitrary deadline that he based his campaign upon, October the 31st. Overall, the highly undemocratic ejection of members of Parliament that he disagrees with is by no means a smart and fair move that enables progress like the First Speaker has tried to tell you. Rather, it seems like a convenient way of muting other politicians who differ in his opinion and have legitimate concerns. The First Speaker has also tried to tell you that because Boris Johnson has a majority vote and is the most honest person, he is Britain's best choice to lead Brexit. Whilst Johnson may have a slight majority within citizens, this can hardly be attested to the transparency that the First Speaker suggests is clear in Boris Johnson's strategies. Citizens who support Johnson have relied on his party to communicate the potential negative effects of Brexit, no deal or deal. Yet he has confidently and ignorantly claimed false information that has allowed him to gain some kind of popularity, suggesting there are many, many other options than the Northern Ireland backstop, and that the money for the withdrawal agreement can be left in a state of creative ambiguity. Yet he fails to support his claims and has not released information on actual tangible suggestions that support his quotes for those things. Further, in recent times, it seems as if citizens are not even impressed with his actions anymore. According to a poll by YouGov, 54% found his proroguing of Parliament as unacceptable. And independence polling found that Northern Irish people have 45% who want to remain within the EU and 45% want to leave. So it can't even be claimed that Boris's push for Brexit is overwhelmingly popular anymore. The second speaker has tried to tell you that Johnson's willingness to undergo Brexit is the best choice for Brexit. While it may seem good that Boris is forcing change and making Brexit happen, the effects of this on Britain are what is really negative. Boris has publicly declared a hard deadline on October 31st, an extremely reckless gamble that means if the EU don't budge, the UK are publicly humiliated if they fail to leave by this date. Completing the agenda quickly with no deal is not the best option. There are seriously negative consequences like the dangerous hard border in Northern Ireland, economic recessions and difficult trade relationship with the rest of Europe. Sure, Brexit might come to a quick end with Boris, but the effects that will occur after Johnson's hasty decision are long-lasting. Now, to my first point. The predominant reason why the British PM, Boris Johnson, cannot be rationally considered the best option is he can't even attain support of other politicians in Parliament. Johnson is stubborn in his opinions, attempting to appear an indomitable force against the EU and leave by October 31st, deal or no deal, causing major tension with lawmakers and opposition who find this highly irrational, rightly so. These politicians are backed by evidence that highlights the most likely aftershocks of no-deal Brexit are shortages of food, fuel, medicine, through trade restrictions and significant recessions in the British economy, according to the Sunday Times. Johnson's tactics have even alienated and infuriated stalwarts like Philip Hammond, the former Chancellor of Exchequer. Opposition parties and a significant number of rebels in the Conservative Party are so opposed to Johnson's idea that within the span of 24 hours, the PM lost 3 key parliamentary votes, and those were the first 3 votes that he had ever undertaken in Parliament. On September 4th, 21 Conservative Party members joined the opposition and seized control over the parliamentary business. Then he could not stop the bill from blocking the no-deal Brexit which he had encouraged, and finally he failed to win a vote on whether to hold an early election. is perhaps indicative that his priorities vary significantly from everyone else's. Like our first speaker addressed, while Johnson is advocating for an avenue that satisfies his campaign promise and essentially gets the deal done and over and done with, other politicians are actually seeking for the most effective solution for the greater good. By reducing the timeline, Johnson has narrowed the options for MPs, meaning they may be forced to accept whatever deal, or lack thereof, that Johnson decides to come up with. Meg Russell, the director of the Constitution Unit at University College of London, suggests that Johnson is hiding from parliamentary scrutiny, denying other politicians the chance to hold him account. Now, to my second point. Boris Johnson has intentionally bent the law in order to succeed. Reports suggest that Johnson was planning to send a sabotage letter to the EU requesting an Article 50 extension, while simultaneously sending a contradictory side letter that suggests the UK wanted no delay in leaving Brexit. David Allen Green from the Financial Times suggests that such irresponsibility is more subversive than any anarchist would ever want to achieve. Jonathan Sumption, the Supreme Court Justice, highlights that the PM would not only be in contempt of the court if he failed to apply for an extension like the MPs voted for, but risk resignation of the Attorney General and other cabinet members. Further, Johnson's ploy of proroguing Parliament is legal, but it ignores the conventions on which the British Constitution is based. How can we claim that Boris is good for Brexit when he fails when he tramples on conventions and exploits ambiguities in the Constitution just to push for a no-deal outcome that isn't even popular anymore? So, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, Boris is by no means the best person for Brexit. His absolute disregard for democratic principles suggests he is a reckless leader who will silence others to achieve an unpopular no-deal outcome.
To conclude the affirmative case, I call upon Christy Sargent.
Good afternoon, ladies, gentlemen, and chairman. As we are all well aware, the topic for this afternoon's debate is that Boris is best for Brexit. This grant expertly illustrated and contextualised earlier. The subject matter pertains specifically to Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, who, at the behest of British voters, is attempting to unite the nation by bringing an end to the futile and bombastic bickering that has occurred socially as well as politically since former PM David Cameron launched the vote in 2016. So far this afternoon, in addition to providing detailed substantiations for Boris's positive impact in championing Brexit, we hope that we have highlighted his growth in popularity, contemporary means of engaging the masses, and his relentless endeavour to see the bill pass, even if it means acting out of favour of his party and even his family. In what is a contentious subject matter, which can easily be misinterpreted through cherry-picked facts and unsubstantiated suggestions, found across many headlines trying to spin a narrative and push agendas, it is my hope that a realistic and tangible picture has been painted tonight by our team to illustrate that regardless of one's stance on Brexit, there is no doubt that Boris is best to push it. Prior to summarising the points of the affirmative team, I would first like to raise the concerns that my team and myself have in the opposition's arguments. The first negative speaker has tried to convince you, through the use of a plethora of statistics and article quotes, that Boris is not best for Brexit. Collectively, ladies and gentlemen, it must be noted that in all of their arguments presented today, that there has not been a sufficient replacement or a better person endorsed by the negative team to see Brexit through. The leader to the left, Jeremy Corbyn, has a multitude of limitations that have rendered him ineffective by the people. David Cameron and Theresa May were unable to see Brexit achieved, and so the world has waited and bated breath. All the while, in his short time of 3 months, Boris has dragged the bill to its closest point ever, and a deal will be done, per his own words and that of the EU leader, according to the conversation in the Financial Times. So I ask again, who is better for Brexit than Boris Johnson? Furthermore, journalist Payne and Parker from the Financial Times has stated on September 14 that Boris Johnson is planning to force a new Brexit deal through Parliament in just 10 days, including holding late nights and weekend sittings in a further sign of Downing Street's determination to negotiate an orderly exit from the EU. According to the number 10 official, Mr Johnson's team has drawn up detailed plans under which the Prime Minister would secure a deal with the EU and at Brussels Summit on October 17th and 18th, before pushing the new withdrawal deal through Parliament at breakneck speed. In fact, there is such optimism surrounding their efforts and endeavours of Johnson that the pound rose 1.1% against the US dollar of $1.247. Last night, amid growing optimism that Mr Johnson has now decisively shifted away from the prospect of a no-deal exit and is focused on a compromise largely based on Theresa May's withdrawal agreement. Ladies and gentlemen, Boris will be ready for Halloween on October 31st. Just look at his hair. But once again, who could be better for Brexit? A question that Negative has failed to answer. I would like to reinstate what Liam had said. The second speaker has said that under Boris Johnson, any deal or no deal that is actually made prior to Brexit will be a disadvantage to the UK. This point is not actually applicable to the debate, ladies and gentlemen, as Brexit, as defined by Garang, is simply the withdrawal of Britain from the EU, which is widely documented by various journalists as with or without a deal. The topic is not what is best for Britain or Ireland. Our debate is that Boris is best for Brexit. Thus, we decline the insight of the second speaker, who was attempting to construct a narrative that does not have a place here today. The second speaker also looked at the notion that the ejection of the 21 MPs is completely unacceptable. Ladies and gentlemen, the ejection of the 21 MPs shows that how Boris will stop at nothing to get Brexit done, including jeopardising his majority. Is this not what we want from a leader? A leader who is unafraid, a leader who wants to take Britain out of the clutches of the EU? The second speaker said that Parliament is suspended for 5 weeks and how this would pose a negative impact on England and Ireland. Valerie Diaz, shadow leader of the House of Commons, actually asked the Parliament to end their session. Additionally, the proroguing coincided with the conference recess, meaning that MPs actually lost only a week of debate as opposed to the 5 weeks commonly stated. The second speaker said that 45% want to leave and 45% want to remain. However, more than 17 million people wanted to leave the largest democratic vote in the UK. It is ludicrous to ignore this. Now, on to my actual summarisation of the team's speech. This afternoon, our first speaker, Garang, took the time to examine and detail the turbulent socio-political climate in Britain, which has manifested in the state since 2016. He discussed the welcome transparency, commitment and dedication that Prime Minister Johnson brings to Brexit. Garang cited far more esteemed individuals than my teammates and I in a professor of politics named John Kennedy, who explains that Boris's parliament tactics are proved to be exceptional, and that due to the aggressive and determined approach, such as withdrawing 21 Conservative whips from his party, that there is now a chance of a deal in October 17, because Brussels realises the Prime Minister is totally committed to leaving on the 31st of October. He also explained that the likes of Theresa May, who could not get a deal, and the premature departure of David Cameron and the sheer lack of confidence of Jeremy Corbyn is instilled in the populace greatly contributes to Boris being best for Brexit. Our second speaker, Liam, explained that political matters should, at their very core, reflect the voices of the people and their preferred notions. Especially pertaining to Brexit, this has become lost somewhere in a pile of political correctness and socialist agendas, to which Boris Johnson is uniquely trying to put an end to. Liam also explored the charismatic and popular Prime Minister's ability to connect with the citizens of the United Kingdom through technology, as he attempts to unite the divided state, which is a feat that has not been achieved by any other leader. He also stated that Boris Johnson's online platform has garnered a great deal of positive feedback from voters and political party members alike. I would like to conclude with the wise words of Boris Johnson himself. It is easy to make promises, it is hard to keep them. A promise was made in 2016 to the men and women of the United Kingdom. They would no longer be a part of the European Union. And for years, this promise was not upheld. However, a shining light was shown in the form of Boris Johnson, and the beacon, that is his blonde hair, has given the populace of the UK a man they can believe in, a leader to fulfil their wishes. So once again I ask, who could be a better leader? Thank you.
To conclude the negative case and this afternoon's debate, I call upon Emily Down.
Good afternoon, ladies, gentlemen, Mrs. Chairperson, timekeeper and adjudicators. The topic for today's grand final is that Boris is best for Brexit, and as the negative team we believe this statement is incorrect. Today's third speaker, I'll be rebutting the opposition's arguments and then summarising my team's case. The opposition's first speaker has tried to argue that Boris Johnson has an incredible drive to get Brexit done and will sacrifice his families and other MPs in his party to get the deal done. However, this drive is leading him towards a no-deal solution that will not benefit Britain and be detrimental to Ireland. His drive to achieve the EU as soon as possible will in fact negatively impact his ability to resolve Brexit, as our first speaker has discussed. Even Leo Varadkar, leader of the governing party in Ireland, told Boris that there is no such thing as a clean break, or just getting it done. Boris needs to be prepared to put in the time and go the long way around, even compromise a little to achieve a Brexit that will not start more economic issues than it resolves. Furthermore, it is important in this deal in particular that the Prime Minister considers the global interests, not just Britain's. And when going around this issue, what goes around comes around, and if Boris makes enemies because of his rush to get the deal done, no matter the results, the outcome will not be good for Britain. Commitment is only good if it's for the right cause, and the opposition have not given any reason why a no deal will be a good outcome for Britain. Britain needs an MP who will have the drive and commitment, but towards the right cause. The second affirmative speaker has continued this theme that Boris will stop at nothing to get Brexit done. And they've raised the issue of him suspending Parliament. However, this is not a good thing and is a mark of Boris's agenda, as it's actually illegal and he's been ruled guilty of lying to the Queen by the High Scotland Court. And people, they've also backed up their claim by saying that people don't care about politics and processes. However, they may care if their PM thinks he is above the law. They also have argued that the people prefer leadership over what goes on in Parliament, and but this also raises the issue of whether Boris Johnson is actually a good leader. And just because the people want leadership, it doesn't make it important, and the public are not qualified to decide what qualities are needed to achieve Brexit. Furthermore, also related to Boris's commitment, the second speaker argued that the fact Boris is the only man prepared to follow through with a no-deal solution makes him the man for Brexit. This is drastically incorrect, and the reason he's the only man prepared for a no-deal solution is because a no-deal solution is not the desirable outcome. And to conclude their point about Boris's commitment, the Negative team has tried to tell you several times that Boris is best because he is moving forward rapidly, faster than any other PM, so he can hit a deadline. You may think this is a progressive move, however, we believe it does the opposite. By Brexit pushing for a result, deal or no deal, the British economy and public will suffer, pushing their progress, in fact, backwards. Economic recession and thousands of individuals suffering as a result of no deal are certainly not progressive movements. Ladies and gentlemen, it is imperative that we realise that there is a difference between getting Brexit done and getting Brexit done well. The Affirmative team have also tried to argue that the unsettled state of Parliament and the divide between no deal and people advocating for a new referendum means that Boris is the only man who will stand up to the task. But this doesn't necessarily mean he is the best man. This still requires a compromise in which Britain must respect global relations. But the fact that there is a huge divide is more important to have someone considerate on both sides of the argument. The Negative team has also tried to tell you several times that, also, the second Negative speaker has tried to tell you that it does not matter that Boris does not have an economic background because he is moving Brexit forward, deal or no deal. It is all well to get Brexit over with, but it would be more beneficial to the public to proceed with all areas accounted for, especially economic, rather than a rash decision simply to meet the deadline. The second speaker has again tried to tell you that Boris is able to connect with citizens. However, we also see this as false. According to YouGov statistics, 33% have a positive opinion, and a huge 70% of female voters say his sexist behaviour is a problem. It is clear that his public is backing It is clear that the public is not backing him, and he is in the minority. Also, you just have to Google Boris Johnson and see photos of him suspended mid-air with Union Jacks plastered all over him, or the many memes comparing him to Donald Trump, or the articles describing his government as a carnage, to realise that the public has little faith in Bojo. At various points in his speech, the second Affirmative speaker has made references to a new deal Boris Johnson is working on. However, he's not been specific of the details of this new deal, and has mentioned that it would involve removing the backstop, which is actually a negative outcome, and would mean that Northern Ireland and Ireland cannot trade freely between each other, and will create economic issues for both sides of both countries on the border. The third Negative speaker has tried to tell you that Boris is best for Brexit because there is no one else willing to take this position, therefore making him the best. Just because no other politician is jumping at the opportunity to lead the exit of Brexit from the EU does not make Boris the best. He cannot be called the best MP simply by default. They've also backed this up by arguing that Boris Johnson has dragged the Brexit deal to the closest point it's been so far. And that's mostly a result of him having the longest time to have done it, because he can build on what Theresa May had already accomplished. And also, he's working towards a no-deal solution, which is probably not the best direction to be heading in anyway. And the Affirmative team have tried to rebut our argument by saying that we have claimed that a deal on the different... Sorry, by saying that we have claimed that that both deal and no deal are not beneficial arguments, and they've said that this is irrelevant to the debate. We agree that it's irrelevant to the debate, which is why it was never actually one of our points, and our argument is that no deal is bad for Brexit, which is what Boris is pushing for. Now I'd like to summarise our team's case. Our first speaker, Matilda, argued that Boris Johnson's lack of experience in economics with a background as a journalist and mayor means he lacks adequate skills to correctly deal with a situation like Brexit. She then explained Boris Johnson's motives when it comes to Brexit and how his overwhelming desire for Brexit to be over deal or no deal risks economic turmoil in Britain. This was followed by our second speaker, Aditi, who discussed Boris Johnson's complete disregard for law and how it is imperative in a democratic system that the government needs to be separated from the judicial system, and this means no man, not even Prime Minister, should act as if they are above the law. She then went on to argue the ways in which Boris is... so in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, Boris is bad for Brexit. Thank you.
phenomenal this evening. For such an entertaining and engaging debate, I think we can give both teams another round. My name is James Baker. I'm one of the senior adjudicators tonight on our panel of 5. And each adjudicator this evening has arrived at their position independently of each other, and so there'll be no individual feedback this evening. Today's decision was a unanimous decision of 5-0, and I can announce that the winner of the grand final for 2019 for the senior division, with the topic that Boris is best for breakfast, is the affirmative team, Rostrevor. Congratulations to Rostrevor and commiserations to St Peter's girls. The Master of Ceremonies will award the trophy to the winning team, and I will hand it back to the chair. Thank you.
I call upon a member of the run-up team for St Peter's girls to give a vote of thanks.
Thank you everyone for coming along today, and thank you for you guys who put up such a good debate. And some really, I liked how you talked about how it was for Brexit, not for Britain. It was very nice, with the technicality there. And yeah, thank you to the adjudicators for your time and effort. We really appreciate you coming and listening to us. So yeah, thank you.
I call upon a member of the winning team from Rostrevor College to second.
As I said last week, I'd like to thank God for his divine intervention. I'd also like to thank the opposition team. You guys put up a brilliant debate. We heard stories and rumours through the season that you made another team cry through your overwhelming them. So I'm not sure if that's true, but what I know is true that they're a solid team. So I'd also like to thank the timekeeper, the chairperson, and the people who came out to watch. I'd also specifically like to thank Mr. and Mrs. Hodkinson, the red tab jumper in the tank, and Ms. Hodkinson in the chair. So for being our managers, for giving us advice on how to be better debaters and back ourselves in. And also I thank my teammates as well, so thank you.